Today's video, I'm gonna do something to my Bermuda lawn and I wanna see what is gonna make it the absolute greenest this spring. I think by the end of this video, we're gonna have a clue because I'm gonna do a side-by-side test on my own yard and see which part turns out greener or how much of a difference it makes. So hopefully by the end, we're gonna see dramatic difference in one part of my yard versus the other. Let's get started right now. Today's video is sponsored by Mosquito. So if you're not familiar with Mosquito is an app on the phone that connects with a piece of hardware that's used for measuring the lawn. And the difference is Mosquito factors in things like elevation, and it's easy to measure around odd shapes in the lawn, whether that be a landscaping bed. And then it easily exports from the app to email, or you can save it, or you could send it to a customer for a quote. So if measuring lawns is important to your business and the accuracy of that is important to your pricing, then you want to check out Mosquito. The link is in the description below. All right, so I have a theory, and I don't know if it's really a theory, but I actually tried this last year and it got burned literally. I'll tell you about that in a second. But what I think most of the time, the reason that my yard turns green the fastest in the spring compared to a lot of the other yards that people say, Jason, how'd you get your yard so green? For Bermuda grass lawns and sometimes other warm season grasses, it has a lot to do with scalping the lawn. Now, this isn't an exact science. Again, I tried this last year and I'm gonna tell you what happened and how I got burned by doing it, but we're gonna try it again in this video, but even in a more dramatic way. This is my front yard, Bermuda grass. Thick, it got real thick. Last year I put a lot of fertilizer on this, so this is thick Bermuda, and I'm filming this in March. So it's starting to turn green. Last night we were like 28 degrees. So I mean, it just is what it is. You see, it's mostly brown. What I want to do today is I want to actually scalp a section of the lawn and not scalp all of it, so that we'll be able to see clearly the part I scalp and see how much greener it is versus the part that is not scalped. Now, here's what happened last year. I was out here and I had like 4 or 5 test plots. I think I had 4. I had maybe 5. I had one that said that was just left like it is. Okay, nothing. Another one that I scalped. Another one that I scalped and fertilized. Another one that I didn't scalp and I fertilized it. You know, whatever. I test them all different ways. Well, what happened was, and this is the danger, you think, oh, Jason, just scalp it. That's the quickest way to make it green. Well, I think so too. But what happened last year, this is what happens a lot of times. You scalp it, it starts putting out this little tender growth from the ground, and then you get that cold freezing weather that zaps that tender green growth, and now you got the brownish yard in the neighborhood and not the greenish yard. That's exactly what happened. I had it going last year and the part I'd scalped was turning green. We get 3 nights in a row in the 20s, boom, it's brown. The whole video is basically screwed up. But this year's different. I think the freezing weather's gone. I think last night might be the last freezing night of the year. For us, I'm in the Birmingham, Alabama area. Let's scalp half the yard. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's see the difference. And the reason this works, let me just show you a couple things real quick. A lot of times, I think one of my kids asked me this the other day, he's like, Daddy, how come the grass is green by the edge of the sidewalk? Now, you can't really see it here, but you think about this. What makes the grass green? A lot of times, I think it's the soil temperature. And so you got the heat radiating off of concrete, and a lot of times you'll see it where right along the edge, it'll be significantly greener than just off the edge. Now, this isn't a great example. The other thing that I've noticed a lot of times is where the grass is real thin. Again, you don't have all that thick grass kind of insulating the roots. But you see here, this is real thin grass that gets a lot of water. And you see it's significantly greener than other areas of the lawn. The other thing I want you to notice, okay, again, significantly greener Bermuda grass here. You get over here where you've got zoysia grass, it's also significantly greener. Now, centipede greens up probably the fastest of our warm season grasses. But again, that's sometimes a disadvantage because if it greens up too fast, then you get that cold late frost in March or even April sometimes, then it's gonna really set the grass back. Not always kill it, but can turn it brown. So the thin grass seems to be greener. The zoysia seems to be greener. The grass that gets a lot of water seems to be greener, but I want to take all those factors out and go in the front yard where it's all full sun and all very thick and cut the grass, and then we'll see what happens. All right, I got the mower out, and I told my wife I was going to do this. She didn't exactly understand why I was going to make half the yard greener than the other. I said, just trust me, okay? It won't be. It's a temporary experiment here. So what we're going to do is we're going to mow, basically maybe from that green tree way out there over, mow that part and not mow this part. And I think if we do that, that'll be plenty to see what greens up faster. This is probably in the neighborhood of 3 inches. This, I'm going to take it down to 1.5 inches because that's as low as my mower will go. One thing to know on Bermuda grass, when you look at it, this part here, I mean, this is not going to ever turn green again, okay? This is just dead grass. I mean, it's what left over. It's going to put new shoots up from the ground here. So I basically need to get all this away to let the sunlight get down there, warm up the roots, and make it green. You can see it's basically a dust bowl out there when I'm doing that. No, I'm not going to bag it. I've got 3 or 4 acres of Bermuda grass. I'm not going to bag it. So you can see all that dormant grass just going crazy. So we'll see. We cut it. We didn't cut half. We cut half. Let's check back and see what the results look like soon. It's been about 3 weeks since I cut the grass, and I want to show you the update. And I don't know if anybody will be more surprised with these results than me. Sometimes these videos go the way I expect, sometimes they don't go the way I expect, but I think we can learn something either way, and I think I've learned something. Got some new conclusions on what actually makes a lawn green, particularly in this situation with Bermuda grass. Let's take a look, we'll draw our conclusions. Okay, now I'm standing back at a distance and I can sort of see the lawnmower track, so I know what's been cut and what hasn't been cut. But just look at it with me for a second and see, can you tell much of a difference by how green it is? And the short answer is basically you can't. I mean, it's not much at all. And I will say after I cut it, we got a little bit of a freeze there and it kind of zapped it a little bit. So I was giving it more time to turn green. But you can see it's basically as green over here, not cut, as it is over here, cut. So my theory didn't work out too good in that situation, which I'm not totally ruling that out because I think I just misplayed it a little bit. So let me explain. I think there's actually a few factors that can turn a lawn green. Early scalping makes a difference, and I want to show you a different part of the yard and then try to explain why I think other parts of the yard are greener than this part. So if I look out here in this back area, and I showed this earlier in the video, this is one of the greenest parts of the yard, and I think one of the reasons, or actually 2 reasons I can think of. I mean, look at how green this is comparatively speaking. This area gets a lot of water. I don't know why. I guess it's a little bit lower, but when it rains, it gets a lot of water back here. So I'm thinking water may actually be a big factor, and I'm thinking of that of another yard I looked at the other day, had a leaky spot in the yard and it was very green. So I think water makes a difference. I'm not saying go turn your sprinkler system on in February, but I just do think the areas that get more water are more green. The other thing is this area of the yard, this part of the yard was already pretty short. So I think if it's been insulated all winter long, like the part out front, and the earlier you scalp it, the quicker it's going to turn green, but also the more exposure you are if you get freezing weather. So you run the risk benefit there of scalping early, greens up faster, but you might also get zapped by the frost. Looking at a different part of the yard, I feel like this is a little greener than the front yard, and this part was actually cut probably a month before the other part, or several weeks before anyway. So I think the earlier scalping benefited this, and we're getting a little bit more green up out here. Now, with all that being said, I think actually possibly the #1 factor of cutting it short, getting rid of some of the dormant grass makes a big difference. I think the water makes a difference, but possibly the biggest factor is actual sunlight. I've seen areas where, whether it be on a slope or whether it just be a shaded area where it's the closer you get to the tree, where the sunnier part turns green. I was actually with one of my children the other day, and I showed them a yard. I said, Daddy takes care of this yard. And they said, why is it so brown? I said, you know, some yards don't turn as green as fast. I think sometimes it has to do with different things, but I think for that one, it's just a little bit shadier than other yards, and it's taking it a little bit longer to wake up from winter. So here's an example. You know how well it's showing up on the video here, but it's actually, as you get closer to the tree, it's not as green as it is when you're out from the tree, and I think that has a lot to do with shades, possibly the tree competing with nutrients with the grass as well. So hey, these videos don't always go the way they're planned. This one, I thought we were going to get dramatic results to the part of that scalp versus not scalping. Didn't work out that way, but that's how you learn. You do an experiment, you observe the results. I think that's basically what science is. So we did an experiment, we observed the results, and we drew conclusions. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. If you want resources to get into the lawn care business, weed control and fertilization, or mowing, go to lawncarelife.com. We'll see you guys in the next video.